President Trump is turning up the pressure on Israel, saying many in Gaza are starving and vowing to set up food centers to speed up aid. Prime Minister Netanyahu, on the other hand, insists there's no starvation, even as the World Health Organization warns nearly 1 in 5 children under 5 in Gaza City is dangerously malnourished. Israel has now announced a daily tactical pause in 3 parts of Gaza to allow more supplies in. The military says it shows starvation isn't a weapon of war, while aid groups argue it's still far from enough to meet the desperate need. And for more on this, let's bring in our panel, CBN senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright at the White House and Jonathan Conricus, a former IDF spokesperson and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Gentlemen, welcome. Kelly, let's start with you. The president's comments appear to put him at odds with Netanyahu. What is driving this shift in tone from the White House?
Well, while it does appear that he is at odds with Bibi Netanyahu, you can trust that he really is not. He understands the full game of what's going on here. But at the same time, because he is a humanitarian, he sees what's going on the ground. He sees the pictures of starving children. And because of that, the president is stepping up to say something needs to be done. Let's use this moment while we're still waiting for a ceasefire to address the humanitarian needs going on among the Palestinian people, men, women, and most notably children. The president, with UK PM Keir Starmer by his side today in Scotland, stated this.
I want to make sure they get the food, every ounce of food. I think you want the same
absolutely.
thing.
It's absolutely.
Because that food isn't being delivered. Or at least all of it.
And I must admit that the president is concerned about that, but there are also airdrops going on right now, humanitarian airdrops with food getting to the Palestinian people. But a lot of people looking at it from the outside say that's not enough. The president wants to do more about that, and that's why he made that statement today.
Yeah, Israel, of course, is accusing Hamas of taking most of that food. President Trump kind of alluding to that there, that these people who are starving are not getting the food. Jonathan, how is this increased pressure from the White House playing in Israel, and what do you make of the IDF's decision to pause fighting in certain areas to deliver this aid?
I think this is a strategic milestone. Sadly, I have to admit that it is an achievement for Hamas. They ran a very successful media campaign in international media. It culminated with the French announcement that they would recognize a Palestinian state. And another milestone on the way was 27 countries that criticized Israel and applied pressure on Israel to stop the fighting, and actually hardly naming Hamas as the side that refuses a ceasefire and continues to use human shields and to hold Israeli hostages. And regrettably, what the decision, by the way, it's a decision made by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, not by the IDF. The IDF doesn't make decisions. The IDF executes decisions made by the elected officials in Israel. And I regret it because it undoes many months of fighting. And basically where we are now is that Hamas got what they wanted, which is the continued or renewed flow of goods into Gaza. And that aid is coming to the corrupt and violent and oppressive hands of Hamas. Mm-hmm. Hamas will use the humanitarian currency. They don't look at it as aid, but they look at it as currency. They will use it against the population. They will strengthen their position in Gaza. And what it effectively does is that it, I think, lowers the chances of a ceasefire. It elevates the price that Israel will have to pay for live hostages to get them back home to their families. And I think it lowers the chances of a peaceful resolution to this war that has been going on since October 7 and until today, almost 2 years. So I'm afraid it's a negative milestone. International pressure brought to bear on Israel, and Israel, unfortunately, responding the way it did.
Yeah, the Free Press had an article today, and it was talking about how, in most situations like this, most of leadership would surrender if they saw their people starving in this way, but that's not what Hamas is doing. Kelly, the White House mentioned setting up food centers inside Gaza. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The president talked about that today, setting up food centers in Gaza, free of any boundaries and no fencing around them. That is something that he wants to achieve in order to make sure that people are getting the food. But here's the problem, and Jonathan pointed that out correctly. The problem is Hamas can go in and take advantage of that situation and actually bring more pain, inflict more pain on its own people in order to make Israel look bad in that process. And certainly senior government officials that I've spoken to in Israel have stated that that is a real life scenario that can happen. Now, Jonathan can address that more than myself. But the bottom line is the president sees something that has to be done. He's frustrated with Hamas. He knows that Hamas is the impediment to that ceasefire. He's also frustrated with Bibi Netanyahu because he believes that more needs to be done in order to broker a deal. But bringing about some sort of agreement with Hamas is just a near impossible situation because of the fact that Hamas does not mind using its own people and putting them in harm's way just to achieve their own goal of staying in power.
Yeah. Jonathan, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think that we should acknowledge that there is a functioning system of delivering food to Palestinians, and the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, led by Reverend Johnny Moore, they've delivered more than 95 million meals in about 5 weeks of work. That is no small amount, and that, by the way, is a threat to Hamas, and Hamas perceives it as a threat. And all of Hamas's demands, when they speak with the French, when they speak with the Qataris and the Egyptians, they want the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation out because they know that that is a rival and that will undermine Hamas's stranglehold over the civilian population. I remain hopeful because at the end of the day, even with this current setback, I know that there are plans to re-engage here and to enhance operations against Hamas. The only way forward is victory, peace and stability, and the end of suffering for everybody involved can only come once Hamas is defeated and once the long process of rebuilding Gaza will begin. Safety and security for Israelis and a dignified existence for Palestinians cannot happen as long as Hamas is there. We know it, and I think that'll be the eventual end of this conflict.
Okay, gentlemen, we are out of time. We have to leave it there. Kelly and Jonathan, thank you so much.